Hello and welcome. Thank you for streaming either live or on demand another episode of the You Matter IL podcast. I am Mo Lightning. She is Angela Cummings, Queen of American Foundation Suicide Prevention, Illinois chapter. How are you?
I am great, and I am loving that title. Although
Yeah.
my coworkers may prefer the more official title of Associate Area Director, but what do they know?
No, it's all right.
It's just
You make the business card, it's official. You're good. You're fine. Of course, every week we talk about the different means of mental health, either recognizing it in yourself or in others. This one is about connection and how important an internet connection is. If you don't have good Wi-Fi, then you're just really going to struggle to be able to connect. And why are you laughing? Why?
I think we made a connection on a more philosophical level this week, Mo, is what we were talking, like the interpersonal connection.
That makes more sense. Okay. That makes sense. I was gonna say, because you could just look at numbers and then you could form a Wi-Fi connection pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I'm pretty technically illiterate here. It's just kind of magic that we get here every week and talk together. So
Gotcha.
I wouldn't be a good guest for that one.
All right. And so that makes sense why we also have an additional guest helping us out with the show today. Angela, would you like to introduce our co-host?
So our co-host is Alex Hoffman, and I just recently met her actually through one of our own AFSP Illinois board members. She's the education director at the NAMI chapter that's in our western suburbs here in the Chicagoland area, but I could probably let Alex give a little more information about herself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Hoffman. As Angela said, I'm the education coordinator for NAMI Metro Suburban. A lot of what I do is going into schools, although virtually right now, to talk to kids about mental health and kind of just organize small educational events around mental health as well.
Excellent. Well, Alex, thank you for joining us. And of course, thank you to Weeble's Bar and Grill for the support for this episode here. Where do we start? Talking about a connection. Alex, have you seen in your work, especially over the last year, have you seen more of a disconnect?
Yeah, I think so. I actually just started at NAMI in August. So I was kind of thrown into the challenge of transitioning what would be an in-person model of going into schools to a virtual model through Zoom and all of that fun stuff. So I actually have not been in any of the schools that we work in yet. And so part of my job is sharing with the students my own mental health journey. And I've certainly experienced some presentations. I mean, I see a lot of ceilings when I present to students, which is always fun. So sometimes I feel like I'm kind of bearing my soul, and then we ask if there are questions, and we get crickets. So sometimes it's a little bit of a disconnect for me personally. Yeah.
Would it make you feel more comfortable if I aimed my camera up?
Yes, actually, that feels more natural for me.
I'll just kind of roll off screen here for a while. There we go. Yeah, I mean, I would say one of the reasons that Mo and I talked about having this as one of the topics of this series that we're doing, the You Matter IL, is, people have had to try to find ways to stay connected in a virtual setting. And when you're talking about protective factors for mental health or suicide prevention, being connected to friends or family, connection is like one of the primary protective factors that's going to help you stay, mentally healthy and help you avoid, becoming suicidal or, getting into a deep state of depression or a crisis situation. So then the challenge became, well, now that we're not able to get together in our usual ways, like, how are we finding connection? Because some of these things we're using to be connected, like our phones and our computers, were sort of traditionally been ways that we've disconnected. And we've seen those more as things that have been barriers to, like, people will say, hey, put down your devices and just have a real face-to-face conversation. I'm sure you've heard people say that as like almost like a criticism. And it's like, well, now there's just really no other way to talk to people. So, I mean, one reason I really wanted to have NAMI and Alex on this week is that, they've done such a great job in general, and they do more than AFSP does in terms of, like, providing services, providing actual groups that people can attend, and creating spaces for connection. So I know, for example, the NAMI chapter that Alex is with has something called the Living Room. And I think that in Springfield, one of the area behavioral health centers there just opened their own living room. And those are spaces where, again, people can come and find some connection, be around people that maybe understand and can support what they happen to be feeling at that particular moment. So I just really thought it would be interesting to get kind of her perspective on, is there a way to stay connected in a virtual setting? And, what are the barriers, or what are maybe like the actual benefits, if there are any?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just speaking to that living room example that you just gave, I think the living room is a fantastic model because it's an alternative to the ER for people who are in crisis. And it's just this calm, safe place where you can meet with a recovery support specialist, and these are people who have also recovered or are recovering from mental health conditions. So again, that connection is just so key. And I think we would save so much time and just like struggle if we had a model of like the living room everywhere, in terms of just as a general resource and not something that's like a unique thing. And just as you were saying, Angela, like I feel like it's a bit of a catch-22 right now. Like during this time, we've had so much time on our hands. A lot of us have been working from home, and we're more in our heads than ever before. And it's become a question of how much we use technology to aid with that, because on one hand, we can only interact with some of our family and friends through technology. And then on the other hand, we know that increased screen time can correlate with increased symptoms of depression. So it's a very tricky line to walk, and especially with kids being virtual right now. That's also a super big challenge for them, because in our own presentations, we ask them, how can we reduce screen time? And it just feels like an almost useless question at this point, because it's like, oh man, I'm so sorry you guys, you're on screens all day. But we do have a lot of things at NAMI that are still happening in person, and we've been trying to do some stuff in person and virtually when we can. We have our family support group that it's for relatives and people dealing with them. Sorry, relatives and others involved with individuals dealing with a mental health condition. So, like I said, it's a support group, and it's led by family members of individuals who are affected by a mental health condition. So again, just finding that group connection. We also have what's called Connections, which is a support group for people living with a mental health condition. And it's kind of like group therapy in a way, people sharing experiences, coping strategies. It's a safe and confidential setting. So those are just a few of the programs that we offer now. And again, some of those are in person and some of those are virtual. And I think it's gone pretty well. I think our transition to the virtual model has been smooth, all things considered, and we still have people coming to use those services, which has been great.
I mean, I will say, just from the AFSP standpoint, and in terms of us pivoting and making all of our programming virtual, we would deliver one of our Talk Saves Lives presentations, for example, and we would maybe have an audience. It would be a good audience if we had, 25 to 50 people come for a presentation. That was a pretty good crowd,
That's a lot.
Yeah, for an in-person thing. And if it was higher than that, it was almost always because we were at, at a company or something, and it was like part of a lunch and learn series, and nobody had to do anything but just go to the conference room and listen to the presentation or whatnot. And when we pivoted into these, virtual, we were scared, and we thought, how is this going to work? Because I'm sure, as you've experienced, it's a little bit nerve-wracking to be talking about mental health issues when you don't have a person there that can intervene if somebody ends up becoming triggered or getting into some sort of crisis situation. We almost always have two presenters at any of our presentations, because if somebody were to leave, for example, quickly and seem distressed, we would have a person to follow them and check in and make sure they're okay. So that was a little bit nerve-wracking when we transitioned into doing virtual mental health programming. But the bright side was that we were getting like 120 people registered, and the usual drop-off rate for an in-person event is like, well, if you get 50% that show up that say they're coming, then that's a good turnout. And we were getting like 75, 80%. So we were doing these Talk Saves Lives for people, 85, 90, 100 people. We've never reached that many people in one presentation before. So that was really kind of the silver lining. But again, I think that was great. And that was kind of the honeymoon period when people figured out how to use Zoom, and they were just so delighted to sign up for everything that I was like, oh, great, there's wine tasting on Zoom. Like everybody, oh, there's yoga class on Zoom. And now I think we're back into the slope downward where people are zoomed out. And so they're, they're completely tired of virtual programming, and they're like, another Zoom. So it's a really kind of like there was a peak, and now I think we're kind of on the downslope. But I still think that the virtual way of connecting will always be part of our programming going forward now, because you're not geographically tied. Like our presentations now have people from all over the state that dial in, and we don't have volunteers that are necessarily trained all over the state, or could travel. So there definitely are silver linings to everybody becoming more, astute in the ways of virtually connecting. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Alex, just because I often give NAMI as a resource, but I've never actually reached out myself. And maybe someone who's watching this podcast has actually talked to me and I've told them to reach out to you, but I don't even know what that entails. So let's just say that somebody would like to be involved in NAMI. They would like to get services for themselves or for a family member. Like what is the process? Do you have to qualify? Is there a fee? Like I'm really not sure exactly.
Yeah. So the great thing is that all of our programming is completely free for individuals. For any of our educational programs, it's all free. And a lot of times what people do is they literally just call us at or go to our website, which our personal website is namimetsub.org. And they can find a lot of information there. And yeah, sometimes I just get calls from people. They're like, hey, I just want to know what you guys do. Like, what exactly do you guys do? And then I literally I have this PDF. It's like the placemat, and I just read through all of our programs. And sometimes something in there resonates enough with them that they're like, okay, that sounds right. When do they meet? And it's really just as simple as that. It's just providing the information and kind of finding the group that would fit best for them. Mm-hmm. I will say a lot of our programming is usually 18 and up, but not all of it. But I will say that is a good chunk of the people that we program for is 18 and up.
Okay. Well, that is actually very good to know. And is there ever like a waiting list situation, or are you guys usually pretty capable of like handling the volume?
I think I don't know that there's any waiting list situation. I think we're usually able to serve the people that reach out to us, which is great.
That's great, because even though you're talking to us from that chapter, and Mo's in Springfield and I'm based out of the Chicagoland area here, there's NAMI all over the state. There's NAMI all over Illinois. There's NAMI all over the country.
Yeah.
And so it's good to know for anybody who might be watching this or listening to this that it's it's available. You won't have to get on some giant wait list, and you can get help pretty quickly just by reaching out to NAMI.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's often just a big barrier in itself. It's just making that phone call or sending that email, even just going to the website. And that's the hardest first step for so many people. And I appreciate so much when people call or ask us point blank, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help? And it's like, yes, that we would love to help you. What I love about all of the people that work for NAMI is that we're so enthusiastic about helping others that we're so happy when people reach out to us.
Yeah. Cool. I've learned a lot.
I could absolutely see that. And obviously we all have a background or training in the mental health world to some extent, myself lesser than the two of you, but we all know signs to recognize in ourselves and in others. Maybe we should take a step back though. And let's say people are stuck connecting virtually over the computer, and maybe they are falling down into some darkness and they don't realize it. Alex, are there some signs that people can kind of be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think one big general rule that we tell a lot of our students actually is that if some of these signs and symptoms are lasting more than 2 weeks, that's usually a pretty good sign that there might be something bigger going on, like a mental health condition. But, being particularly withdrawn, and that can be for anybody, or if somebody isn't normally withdrawn and all of a sudden you're not hearing from them so much anymore, just feeling like you're not enjoying things you would normally enjoy. That's another big sign and symptom. Angela, I'm sure you can add to these as well.
I mean, one thing that's happened during the pandemic is alcohol use has gone way up.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's, again, one of those weird, like catch-22 double-edged. Some of these social groups that have popped up and some of these fun things that people are doing together are like virtual cocktail hours, virtual happy hour, like cocktail classes. I joined, I don't want to give like a free, I joined like a cocktail kit service or whatever, where like each month they send you a box and a recipe card, and it's totally fun. And they have these happy hours, and a lot of people have made like really strong connections in this group of complete strangers across the country. Of course, it's all still centered around alcohol, which, again, plus minus. But again, that increased alcohol use can be, a troubling sign too. Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, just, feeling like angry. Obviously, anger is a way that oftentimes depression and anxiety will come out in someone, and people don't necessarily realize about themselves. or someone that lives with them may not realize, well, why are you so mad all the time? Well, maybe they're not mad. They could just really be sad and kind of depressed and anxious. So I would say kind of like misplaced or unusual anger that just comes out like violently or outbursts could also be a sign that somebody's kind of starting to, be at a point where they might need some support or help.
Yeah, sleep is another one too. Interrupted sleep, whether sleeping more than usual or less than usual, that's another big one that shows up as well.
I was gonna say, one thing that I love about these podcasts is that we can get real and we can get honest and tell our own stories. I'm on the radio. My show promotes escapism because there is a lot of drama out in this world with the politics and a lot of anger out there right now. So I try to keep things lighthearted. But yet around the building, I'm often considered the cranky one. I'm considered the difficult one, the angry one, when in all actuality, I'm on fumes right now. I mean, and I hate to say it out loud because I'm supposed to give off this great exterior that, everything's great. But for months now, I've been burnt out, and I'm not purposely trying to be angry at people around the building. I'm literally grasping to try to find some sort of connection, which I'm lucky I can come in and see some people on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
But it affects my relationships with people because they think I'm angry when really I've been sad for months now.
Right. And I bet you're using a lot of whatever energy you do have for your audience, because you have an audience who's very strongly connected to you. I mean, I'm part of your, I follow you, and I can see the way that your audience members connect with you, and they definitely, speaking of connection, they feel a strong connection to you. And then I think, here I am psychoanalyzing you on your podcast, but knowing you and how much you care about mental health, I know that you probably feel the weight of that in a sense too. And it's like, wow, I have to make sure I'm taking care of these listeners and these people that reach out to me. And, they say that just listening to you in the morning is like the bright spot of their day. And that's a burden to carry in a way. So yeah, by the time you get done with your shift and by the time you get done answering the comments that you get in your Facebook, posts and whatnot, I suspect there's not a lot left over for your friends and family and your coworkers. And so, just maybe you could just wear a sign that says, "I'm not mad. I'm just tired. Talk later." I don't know.
Not mad, but yes, I am sarcastic.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I think a lot about, and something I talk with like my colleagues about, is this idea of holding space. And it's like the difference between holding space for others, which is something that for a lot of people is really easy to think about. But then when it comes to holding space for ourselves is not something that we've even given any thought to at all. So sorry about the dog barking.
It's the joys of the virtual world.
That is very true.
And
Connection.
Alex brings up a good point. We're talking about staying connected to others and staying connected to the activities and things that you used to like to do, but there is like a connection to self component as well. And like Mo's talking about, with just everything kind of being in this weird space and having to pivot and trying to figure out how to, I'm sure you used to do a lot of like in-person types of meet and greet and how you stay connected to your audience. Right. So you're completely tapped out, and it's like, so now you're losing that connection to you because by the end of the day, you're tired. Yeah. So there's like the connection to others, but then there's like the introspective connection that needs to be maintained too. And I'm guilty of this. And, this is where like that doom scrolling is such, I mean, I can look up and think I just spent an hour just doing nothing productive, but like doom scrolling. And then I'm like mad. I'm mad about something that I saw while I was doom scrolling. It's like, what? I haven't done, there's nothing in that has fed me. I'm not connected to me in any way.
I did that this morning. Yes. Yeah. Before work, I'm just doom scrolling and pushing off going in. I get it. Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. And it's like, I know that they've done some studies about how social media actually does kind of like mess with your brain chemistry. And there's like a serotonin, I think, release or something. There's been some studies about that. And so I'm not blaming anybody for picking up their phone and spending an hour doom scrolling. I'm sucked into it too, but maybe just a little mindfulness around, if you're starting to feel really poorly and you're lonely and you feel isolated, it's like, okay, yes, reach out, but then also, like Alex was saying, try to create like a good space for yourself, something that you think will actually like feed and water the plant that is you, other than just doom scrolling.
I I do think you talk about reaching out if you know that you need that help and whatnot. I think it should be pointed out, and maybe I'm wrong in this perspective. So I'd like to get your take on it, both of you. I think right now a lot of people are trying to reach out to individuals, and they're not necessarily getting the energy back that they were hoping for. And a lot of people take that personally, and I can understand why. But at the same time, I think we're all struggling to some extent right now. So, Angela, if I reach out to you and you don't have the energy within yourself to help me out, then I could get offended by it. But I think people should be aware, just try to be aware of everybody else, that don't take it personally if you don't hear from someone right away.
Right. And then, we always have that. We have this AFSP thing called Real Convo. That's like, you usually put the URL. There it is at the bottom. Right. And that's all about just being honest. It's about having like a real conversation. And so, just being really honest and saying, wow, I'm sorry to hear that you're struggling. I'm also kind of having a really bad day. So, I definitely want to reconnect with you, but I'm not in a good space to help you right now. Maybe something like that could help the other person not feel maybe like cut off or rejected in some way. Of course, that's easier said than done. I mean, sometimes we're just short with people and we don't even realize it. It's like after the fact, you go, oh, I should have handled that a bit better. But again, I mean, just having like some grace and kindness with yourself and with others probably is a good way, just to proceed while we're all kind of just, again, and I think it's going to be awkward when all the restrictions lift and we're back in person again, especially for our youth. And we talked a little bit about this in the very first episode we did about teen depression and anxiety. I think that these kids now, are going to need there's going to be some awkwardness in their socialization when they get back to being in the classroom and, being in their usual social settings. And so I don't think it's going to be a magic pill that it's like, okay, restrictions lifted, everybody go hug and kiss and we're all back to the way we were. It's like, we're all a little rusty with this in-person thing. And, I talked the ear off my poor UPS clerk who owns this local UPS store that I mean, like, she's my best friend right now because like I see her the most of anybody outside my family. And she's like, why does Angela talk to me so much? But it's like, connection.
Yeah,
that's what this whole show's about, though.
Exactly.
Something. And if talking to the UPS person delivering the Amazon packages makes Angela stay a little bit more sane, do it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the other point of this episode is like, what are people out there doing to stay connected? The New York Times, I am a Sunday reader of the New York Times. They had a really funny article about, in their style section, about people who are like continuing to try to date. Like dating is going on in this virtual world, and all these kind of strange things that people are doing, like going on dates, but going like to Central Park and sitting on different benches, but like bringing their own cocktails in a thermos. I mean, like, people are really pretty creative, and humans do want to connect. And of course, the flip side of that article was that there are people who are throwing caution to the wind and just hooking up as they usually would on Tinder.
Exactly.
But others really got super creative with, trying to find ways to go on a first date without really being in person, or sort of a modified in person. So I mean, I think human beings are creative people, and they've come up with some really fun things to stay connected. I mean,
as somebody who's tried to date during the pandemic, I can attest to the need for creativity and the strangeness and all of the things that come with that. Like, online dating and using apps are already weird, a weird way to connect, and then adding a pandemic on top of that just makes it a whole other level of weird. So
sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes even bringing up the conversation about masks and how you're going to date can be awkward in itself.
Yes.
Not on that same page. At least you find out right away. Alex, I understand. Single guy here too. So I get that entirely. But I think the point is, just try it. Dating or not, try to make that connection.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, don't beat yourself up over it. Try another something, and just, and if you do get to the end of the line and you don't feel like trying anymore, then you go to NAMI, and then you go to the pros and see what Alex can do for you, what Angela can do for you. Anybody, really. Find that connection. If you do have a good connection, let them know that you appreciate them as well. Let them know it's off. To make it awkward.
That's right. Seize the awkward.
Yeah.
Absolutely. People need that positive reinforcement. Maybe they're on the other end of that going, am I annoying? I call every day, and you just let them know, like,
Yes.
We never used to talk every day, but I have to tell you, I'm kind of liking it now. Just let people know if they're doing something right, that's making you feel better, so that they're reinforced and they'll keep doing it or do it for other people even. So.
Absolutely. Now, of course, Angela sent me a lot of different resources, links to resources. The only one that was easy to remember to put on screen today was this one. But in the webpage that we initially post this on at the wqlz.com/youmatter, I'll have all of the links there so you can click them. But if COVID is one of the biggest triggers that you have in your life right now, this one is a good resource for that.
Mm-hmm. It is. And Psych Hub, which is like PSYCH Hub, that's another good one. It's got a really long URL to get specifically to the COVID resources, which is why I'm sure you didn't put it up, Mo, but you actually could probably just Google Psych Hub, and NAMI and AFSP are partner organizations in there. And it's like a lot of tabs that you can click on: how to make connections, resources you might need, ways to find help, and current papers, current research. It's just it is like a psych hub. It's sort of a hub of all different articles and resources related to, issues around mental health. So it's a great resource.
So there is stuff out there. Alex, anything we should bring up before we wrap this up here?
I'd say just remember to be kind to yourselves and be kind to others, and use what resources we have, because we're here for you. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for your time. Angela, take us away.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. This has been a lovely episode. Again, I'm loving this series so much. I hope everybody tunes in next week, which the next week's episode is on. I'm totally blanking, Mo. I can't remember.
We're talking about PTSD and soldiers.
Oh, that's right. A very important topic.
Armed services, yes.
Yes, perfect. That'll be a lovely conversation. And of course, you can always reach out to Mo at QLZ. He's such an open book and willing to talk to everyone at any time. Same with us at AFSP, and would love to talk to anybody at any time if you need any help.
And it's not just the name of a podcast. You matter. Keep that in mind at all times. Thanks for watching.